What's good, guys? It is MurderInc here, back with another Raid Shadow Legends video. Today, we're going to be talking about the new champions, the new fusion, my thoughts, my concerns, and there are definitely some concerns going ahead. I'm not sure if everyone picked up on it. I absolutely did, and I'm hoping for the best since nothing is official yet, and it's all speculation. However, there are some really concerning factors about what was just released, and I want to go over that with you just in case it proves to be true so you can further prepare yourself. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to run down a few champions, the two legendaries, the fusion, and then a couple of rares and epics that do stand out. But before we get into that, the main concern here is excluding this void legendary of Ursaga Warcaller, which is pretty much like a War Mother without makeup. So with the exclusion of this champion, there are enough new champions to formulate a brand new fusion. Now, this is a problem. If you want to give players a new champion pool, you shouldn't have them all based on a fusion, because now they have to sacrifice all of these champions to get one new legendary or 4 new epics, so on and so forth. So I hope this isn't the case. Now, it doesn't seem very likely. This is probably just coincidental. However, the fact that it is perfectly aligned with how many champions are needed in a fusion, it definitely raised the question of what are they going to do. If they do this, it's definitely going to be, like I said, a big problem for a lot of people, since we've been saving up all of our vault space with champions ready to use for fusions to kind of lighten the load on the fusion process so we don't have to go for every single event going forward. So that was a main concern there, and they've never done this before, so I have no reason to 100% assume this is going to be the case. However, like I said, this is just a warning from me, bringing to your attention just in case this is the fact, so you can start looking at which champions you would actually keep, which ones you wouldn't want to keep if you decide you're not going to go for the legendary. Now, before we talk about the fusion, let's talk about Ursaga Warcaller. First thing I saw when I saw this champion was ally protection and strength and buff. This is going to be the strongest ally protection champion in the game. For those of you who don't know, even though I've said it 1,000 times by this point, Strengthen is the strongest defensive cooldown in the entire game. No competition, no questions asked. The fact that ally protection is now equalized with the Strengthen, there is an argument to say that block damage can be stronger since it's literally taking 0 damage. However, there's one champion that has that, and if the champion just gets one shot outright, that actually won't proc. So this still stands to be the strongest version of ally protection in the game at the moment. So this is really cool. On top of being a void legendary, we have an A1 that has a block cooldown skills, only a 45% chance, but still, if you take that defensive tree where if the enemy team lands a debuff on your team, Ursaga definitely has the chance to use that A1 and block all of the skills for that next turn upcoming, which is going to be strong. Now we have this interesting A2 attacks all enemies, has that decreased crit damage, decreased attack if they're an attack-based champion, meaning their attack is higher than defense, and a decreased speed and a decreased defense if the attack is equal to or lower than defense. So that's a lot of interesting synergy there. It's very strong. I would have liked it, since this is a void legendary, if all of that was built into one instead of separated like this. However, I think it's fine as it is. Obviously, decreased crit damage and decreased attack is going to completely destroy any nuker, making her extremely strong in a defensive team. And the decreased speed and decreased defense, you're probably going to use another source of a defense down, but this gives you the option to use Ursaga since she is void, and she can definitely fill that role if needed to, even though she doesn't remove buffs. Now we have this passive here, Golden Guard, decreases the damage of all allies received from critical hits by 30%. This champion will receive that damage instead. Now this can be really good or really bad. This all comes down to what her base stats actually look like. Her base stats are really good and it's really easy to build high defense, so on and so forth. Then this is going to be really strong. Remember, once again, we are placing a strengthen buff on this champion, which is absolutely huge. So that's going to give her a really solid foundation as far as a safety net for taking additional damage. However, her base stats are absolutely going to play a giant role since she is an HP type champion, which could prove to be problematic. And finally, we have an aura increases ally HP in all battles by 33%. So overall, I'm not too mad about this champion. I don't think she's a game-breaking, groundbreaking champion. However, I don't think she's bad. I think this is one of the better legendaries we had as of lately, since Drop Gold was kind of a huge disappointment, along with some of the other few that came out recently. Now let's talk about the fusion champion, which is going to be Vergilcar. Now, Vergilcar is an A1 that has a 35% chance of placing a stun debuff. The chance increases by 15% for each buff on the target. So unfortunately, there's a lot that conflicts with that. One buff that could be on the target is block debuff, which should be quite unfortunate. So A1, pretty underwhelming as it is. For an A2, removes all provoked debuffs and one random debuff from all allies. This is a 60% increased defense buff for 2 turns, and allies who have debuffs removes. Also places a shield buff on all allies equal to 20% of this champion's max HP for 2 turns. Now, anytime you're removing provoke debuff, usually you're going to be looking at something like Arena. Unfortunately, this champion is Spirit Affinity, and we're currently in a meta with Trunda and Folly being so strong, so you have to consider things like this, especially since, yes, there is Candrafin, but he will never do as much damage as someone like a Trunda. It is what it is, and that's going to play a major factor with this guy's role in the arena meta. Now, if you have the opportunity to get this champion, absolutely go for him. But with this A2 here, this is definitely aligned more towards arena. And I'm not sure if you guys have noticed this. I've definitely noticed this. They are releasing more support, defensive type champions as fusions because they really don't want to make a mistake, release a fusion that is an attack-based champion and have another incidence with Rhodos, with Folly, with Brachus, champions who do insane amounts of damage that really give players an edge. So maybe I'm the only one who noticed, but it's definitely clear with the path they have been going as of lately. Finally, we have an A3 here that is attacks all enemies, removes 1 random buff for each enemy, has a 75% chance of removing 2 random buffs from each enemy, places a 100% block heal debuff for 3 turns on enemies who have 1 or more buffs removed, also places defense down debuff for 2 turns on enemies who have 2 buffs removed. Now, for a passive, we have immune to provoke debuffs, fills the champion turn meter if they do attempt to place a provoke debuff on the champion by 20%, so that's rather strong. So this guy is really forming out to be kind of a niche arena champion, and there's a really small market for that. Obviously, based on his picture here, I'm assuming he's going to look very cool, so that definitely aligns me to think that people are going to go for him for the aesthetics of his model. However, in the scheme of things, unless this A3 ability hits extremely hard, he's probably going to be another underwhelming champion with a very niche use in the arena, and even then you're going to have to come up with a rather interesting defense team to really work this champion in, or only use them against champions with an AoE provoke like an Angar, like a Molly Tankard, so on and so forth. As far as an aura goes, we have increases ally resistance in all battles by 55. Now we have Beareth Bloodsoaked, who is an interesting champion. He has synergy I haven't seen in the game yet, where he does damage, places shields based on the damage he does on the first hit and on the second hit, heals all allies based on the damage that he does there. HP champions usually don't hit too hard, and since it's a double hit attack, it means the multiplier isn't going to be as high as a single hit attack, so I'm not too confident in this champion already. As far as the A3 goes, we have an Ascended, places a decrease attack, removing an increase attack if it has it on the target, and applies the same with defense down and increased defense. So it's really interesting that they're splitting up one ability when it's 2 hits. The first hit, placing the attack down, giving and removing any increased attack. Second hit, placing that defense down and removing any increased defense. So that's not too huge. If this was an AoE, I would say this is pretty cool. The fact that it's single target really lowers the value of this champion. Now the next champion we have is in fact Fane, who looks like a mouse skinwalker. Attacks one enemy 2 times, having a 35% chance of stealing 5% of the target's turn meter, rather underwhelming. We have an A2 that has a 75% chance of placing 2 poisons and an attack down for 2 turns. This is going to be a 3-turn cooldown. So what this means is you're not going to get a ton of damage out of this. You have 2 5% poisons every 3 turns, which is okay. And you have attack down every 3 turns, which again is okay. This isn't going to be your attack down champion unless you have an extender in a counter attack team, or you're using Thane in a speed team. Now the only place I can really think of that she's going to have immediate use right off the bat would probably be Spider. Since Razen's usually the go-to, the only issue with her is she's attack based, so she's going to be rather hard to gear, and if you're going to use her in Spider, you're probably not going to be able to use her in the clan boss. Since she's attack based, if this was a defense based champion and there was a little bit more work put into her kit, she would probably be one of the best epics in the game. However, I'm going to have to stamp her with a just better than mediocre stamp right now because of the long cooldowns at the moment, because we don't know what it's going to be booked at. But the fact that she's an attack type champion and she will suffer from weak hits, and she's not like Dracomorph who doesn't hit the target when he applies that defense down and weaken. So actually, now that I can contradict myself after reading this, defense down and weaken is applied for 3 turns, which means that this is actually only going to go to a 4-turn cooldown when booked. I didn't notice that at first, I do notice it now. They're never going to do 3-turn cooldown, 3-turn duration, so this is kind of cool, but also goes back to now we have someone on a 4-turn cooldown, and if defense down and weaken does not apply, you have to wait 1 extra turn. Then any other defense down and weaken champion like Venus and Dracomorph would have to wait to reapply it, so there's a lot of punishment there if it doesn't land. So as of right now, Thane is looking to be a very strong Spider champion, a lot harder to gear than the other Spider champions we currently have available to us as far as defense down and weaken, but still strong nonetheless. So far, this is definitely a good epic moving forward. Looking at Kaiden, I just read his kit, there's nothing too important there, so let's keep moving on. Getting to Tuhak the Wanderer. Now, this is the champion that I've been reading over and over again. It is an epic, and it definitely has an epic quality kit. However, this is a kit that I have to think about for multiple days to really gauge what is actually going on here. A bunch of ideas have jumped to my mind about this champion. However, I don't want to speak on it too soon because this is a champion you definitely have to test before kind of commenting on, because it looks extremely complex. Maybe I'm overthinking it, that it is possible. However, I don't really think I am, because there is so much going on with this kit here. It's really going to come down to application and testing to seeing where he actually works, if he's as strong as I personally think he's going to be, or if things aren't going to work out based on the books it takes, so on and so forth, how hard he hits. All of these things are going to add up for a conclusion for Tuhak the Wanderer. So the first rare on the list that actually did stand out to me was Ripperfist. Now Ripperfist is looking like a rather solid use for some free-to-play players who want to progress in the Fire Knight, with this A2 ability attacking 3 times, each hit placing a 100% heal reduction debuff for 2 turns if this champion's HP is full, and placing a 50% heal reduction if his HP is less than 100%. However, we do have this passive, places a 25% increased attack buff on this champion for 1 turn and decreases the cooldown of Rip to Shred skill every time this champion's HP drops below 50%. So more likely than not, if the Fire Knight gets a turn, he's going to whack this rare pretty hard. Since he is an attack-based champion, his health is going to drop below 50%, reducing that cooldown from Rip to Shreds, that is that triple hit that places that heal reduction on the boss. So this is good synergy on top of a double hit A1 with that chance to apply the weak version of attack down. So since the A2 is 4-turn cooldowns, this cooldown may be reduced by 1, possibly 2. I don't think it's going to be reduced by 2, so I think it's safe to say this is going to be a 3-turn cooldown, essentially being put to a 2-turn cooldown for the Fire Knight, making him a rather useful champion for the Fire Knight progression. So those were the rares that stood out to me out of all of them, and obviously miscellaneous. Rare skill tomes removed from gold tier arena chests, as well as Nightmare and Ultra Nightmare clan boss chests. Now nothing is going to be replacing this, so this is going to straight up remove rare books from the loot table of both of these activities here. And that's the only way it's going to affect the drop rates of the other items in that loot table. So once again, if you are kind of new and haven't been here for last October, what's really going to happen is there's going to be an Oktoberfest fusion, which is the one we're seeing now, and there's going to be a Halloween fusion. So if they do follow that same path, we should be looking at 2 more fusions coming up right after this. We have this one, which is Oktoberfest. We're going to have the Harvest Jack equivalent, which is going to be for Halloween. And then after that, we're going to be looking at a possible pay-to-win fusion just after the Halloween one, possibly overlapping. I'm not quite sure about the timeline on that. So that is what we have to look forward to. So lots of new champions coming. Just anyone you're kind of trying to get now as far as legendary, I wouldn't wait too long, because there is more likely than not going to be lots of new champions added to the pool, probably some you may not want. That is something to consider if you have been saving shards as of now. So what I want to know is, let me know what you guys think about the champions I went over so far. Did I miss someone that you think is better than I personally did that I didn't mention? Leave a comment below, let me know. Are you going to be going for this fusion? What do you think about my thoughts on Fane? And there's definitely some cool champions on this list. I look forward to getting a chance to test them, get a video out to you guys so you guys know 100% what's factual, what's not factual, on how these champions actually work, and the best places to be used for them after proper testing is in fact done. And that will conclude it for my video today. Thanks so much for watching. Don't forget, if you like this content, subscribe, turn on the notification bell, and I will see you all in the next upload.